Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome y'all this evening to our speaking event with the Innocence Project. I'm going to hand things off to the students and the students from the Sociology Club, and let y'all get to it.
Thanks to our sponsors, the Orlando Goring Endowment and the College of Arts and Sciences Dean's Opportunity Fund. We have here Keith Howard and Nigel Quiroz from the Innocence Project. We just start off here with Keith. Would you please tell us your story?
I wasn't prepared to kind of tell my story. I think so. Nigel, were you?
Yes, I was. Yes, okay, I was going to introduce. Okay, so hey, how are you doing?
No problem.
My name is Nigel Quiroz. I'm a field organizer at the Innocence Project. I work with the policy department there. I've been working with them for about 4 years. The Innocence Project, what we do is we free wrongly convicted people on DNA evidence, and we seek to change the system through policy reforms, and that's where the policy department comes in. So right here we have with us today, we have Keith Harward. Keith Harward was exonerated by the Innocence Project. He was convicted for sexual assault and a murder that he did not commit while he was 26 and stationed in Newport News, Virginia as a sailor. His story has been chronicled on the Innocence Files, which is a documentary series on Netflix. And one of the three-part series called The Evidence looked at the cases of Keith Harward and also other exonerees, Levon Brooks and Kennedy Brewer. And all three were wrongfully convicted based on bite mark evidence and exonerated with the help of the Innocence Project. At least 26 people have been wrongfully convicted based on bite mark evidence. And Mr. Harward was given a life sentence and said he was just waiting to die when the Innocence Project took his case in 2014. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Harward so that he could tell us more about his story. Keith?
Hey, how y'all? If people have questions and would like to ask me questions, I work better with that type of situation. As Nigel said, in 1983, I was convicted of capital murder, rape, robbery, and sodomy. And in 1985, I was retried because the actual case was not a capital case. So they retried me using the same evidence, which was basically the eyewitness testimony of a shipyard guard and the evidence presented, or the forensic science that was presented in the case by an odontologist, which is a dentist, that testified that my teeth made the bite marks on the woman that was raped. She'd been bitten up and down her thighs. So the police in Newport News contacted the odontologist, excuse me, and he came to trial, testified my teeth imprints matched the bite marks on the woman's legs. A certainty, 100%. They have different terms they use, but without doubt, what he said was true. Therefore, I should be convicted, and therefore I was. I went to 2 trials. Like I said, both trials, same evidence. So I just more or less accepted my future because, tried to beat a parking ticket. But when it's originally capital murder and people are very upset about the situation and want to find someone, and when the prosecutor and the investigators, police department, the judge, the whole judicial system in Newport News conspired to convict me using evidence that is not evidence. I was all in. That was it. I was just waiting to die. Every day, try to do best I could, be respectful, responsible, try to survive, that type thing, and just make it to the end. In 2012, another inmate approached me and had read Barry Scheck, who is one of the co-founders of the Innocence Project, read his book and approached me. The inmate did, said, "You ought to write them and tell them about your case, because your case is so, it's just so absurd, kind of thing." And I said, okay. So I wrote him a letter. And then in 2014, apparently during the staff meeting, or when they were discussing what they were going to do at the Innocence Project, one of the interns spoke up about my case. I've read one of the letters my letter, of the many letters that I get from different people want representation, and they looked into it and then asked me if they could represent me, and it was on from there. A few months later, they were able to get a hold of Newport News and be able to find a box of evidence, the rape kit, benchmark notes from the serologist who testified at 2 trials, which is another thing that helped get me convicted. He lied at both trials, and that's been proven. And off I went, and then they were able to get DNA tested. It excluded me. Then they ran it across the national database, found a match. The person was Jerry Crotty. He had died in 2005 in the state of Ohio, I believe, for kidnapping and abduction. Well, of course, he murdered and raped, for which I spent the time for. And they got together with Skagman Arts. The Innocence Project was, once they got all the evidence together, Skagman Arts is a law firm in Washington, D.C. that represented me pro bono, along with the Innocence Project, because the Innocence Project doesn't have lawyers in every state. They're based in New York City, so they have to rely upon law firms or individuals to help represent them in those different states. They set out a writ of actual innocence, which was the DNA, and then they also filed a habeas, which I never did because I didn't know anything about the law, on the fact that the serologist lied, that the one eyewitness had been hypnotized. Therefore, it was all crap. And we filed March. The Attorney General of Virginia, Frank Green, the great journalist, writer for the Richmond Times-Dispatch, who was dogging them to death because, as he said, you can't make this shit up. So he was going hard at it every day. There was an article about me. The Attorney General got on TV on a Wednesday and says, I'm behind the guy. He needs to get out. Thursday, the Supreme Court of the state of Virginia unanimously said he didn't do it. And Friday morning, I stepped out at some time, I think it was like 1 o'clock, to a press conference. And here I am. So there's other stuff in there, but that's the basic stuff you can read online about me all over. But I like people to ask me questions because they can read this stuff. They want to ask other things that are important to them, to y'all. So if there's some way that someone can offer up questions, or if you want to move on to Rodney for his story, or Nigel, I'll give it back to you and then let you take it from there. How about that?
Okay, great. Thank you, Keith. Thanks for sharing your story. With the university. So I see we have Rodney on. What's going on, Rodney?
Hey, Nigel, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing okay. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Same here, brother.
Good. So a little background on Rodney. But Keith and I and Rodney and I, we've done a lot of different talks together. So before the pandemic, Rodney and I did a lot of in-person talks together. So we build a kind of rapport. So So Rodney, he's an exoneree. He's exoneree from Jersey. He was arrested in 1996 in Jersey after an altercation with a friend, and after several days in custody, he found himself charged with the kidnapping and rape of a 17-year-old girl. Rodney insisted that the police had the wrong man, and his court-appointed attorney advised him to plead guilty to the crime or take the risk of a life sentence. Rodney at the time had a good job and had recently moved with his young son into a new apartment. Hoping to get back to his son as soon as possible, Rodney pleaded guilty to the crime in exchange for a 7-year sentence. He would end up spending 18 years in custody before DNA excluded him as the perpetrator, and he was exonerated and released in 2014. So Rodney, just thank you for coming here and sharing your story. And I'd just like to hand it over to you so that you can fill in the rest of the blanks from the story and what happened to you.
Well, thank you. And the synopsis of your introduction pretty much summed the whole situation up with me. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I spent 18 years wrongfully incarcerated in New Jersey State Prison, Rahway. Like Nigel said, in 1996, I was wrongfully arrested, charged. I entered a plea of guilt to a charge I didn't commit because of the pressures from my attorney, who coerced me, tricked me, basically manipulated me, and lied to me that there was evidence against me that was unrefutable that the prosecutor had, and that if I tried to go to trial and lost, I would spend the rest of my life in prison for a crime I didn't commit. And the compound with the pressures of having custody of my son, just getting a new job and new apartment and trying to start my life from that point and move on forward as an adult who, responsible adult in society. I felt the pressures that, the best thing to do to save my life was to enter a plea agreement. I was told that if I entered the plea agreement, that the sexual assault would be dismissed and the kidnap charge would be downgraded to second degree, and the record would reflect that no one was hurt, and I would be home in 2 years. So, in my mind, convincing myself to enter a plea of guilt towards a crime I didn't commit, which was a very, very hard, difficult thing to do. And it's as if I was portraying myself, but I felt that, I had to make a choice between the lesser of two evils. And so I chose what I thought was to save my life by entering a guilty plea, and as a result, when I was sentenced to that guilty plea, I was sent to state prison, Rahway State Prison, wherein once I was there, I was interviewed by the administration, what's called the classification committee. And as a result, they, based on their records, they didn't view the guilty plea as valid. They viewed me based on the police reports. And the police reports said that I had did all the crimes, the sexual assault, the kidnap, and that's how they viewed me. They didn't go, so I was, in their mind, that's how I was to be orientated into the prison system. So at that point, I objected, hey, I'm innocent, actually. I didn't do any of it. I just pled guilty to save myself. But now I'm here in front of y'all saying these things are true. And so once I said that, the course of my imprisonment went left and completely. On top of the fact that you locked up is already left, but this is more to the left. And so while there, I had to study, figure things out. At first, I had to deal with a lot of emotional issues, a lot of issues of feeling like I said, like I portrayed myself, feelings of self-sabotage and angry at myself. So I had to get over a lot of things, a lot of psychological things in order to be able to help myself because I was in my own way. And once I was able to learn to forgive myself and learn to move on, I started studying law. And come to find out, I was very good at what I was studying. My ability to comprehend, read, write, and interpret law was a gift. And as years went by, thinking I was going to be released within a short period of time, in the course of things, I went to the parole board. But once again, the parole board based their decision on the record itself, and I was denied parole. So subsequently, I was denied parole 3 times. And at the third hearing, I was told that I would be maxing out, which was, as opposed to do 2 years, I would have to have served the whole 7 years, and which I did. So after serving the 7 years, and at this point, continuously studying law, fighting for my innocence, trying to prove my innocence, and to continue to say I was guilty, the state of New Jersey had created a law while I was in prison under the SUVP, the Sexual Violent Predator Act. And this law said that anyone who had a sexual-related offense was to be civilly committed. Now, I didn't know this was going on. I had no idea that they were doing this. I had no idea that I was even considered. So on the day I was to be released, which was June 2004, that day I was held. After going through all the parole classes, after doing everything, and under the administration had me under belief that I was leaving, the day I was to leave, everyone else left but me. And then I was told that a petition had been filed by Attorney General because I continued to say I was innocent. I wasn't taking responsibility for the crime that I didn't commit. To them, that made me unremorseful, and that in their mind, that made me a continued danger to myself and others. That I was, and to the point where they were saying I was delusional and believing my own lie, and that this made me dangerous because how could they release me back to society, believing that a lie that I was innocent? And I'm in my heart, and the God knew that I was innocent, and I am innocent. So I was transferred to a civil commitment, which in New Jersey, the Civil Commitment Act is a facility called the Special Treatment Unit, which is a hybrid, because the law was new, where the Department of Correction and the Department of Human Service combined to host and keep confined us the individuals. We weren't called prisoners, so to speak. We were called civilians. But because at this point the criminal term of the prison system was over, now this was civil. And in the course of this, now let me go backwards in order to go forward. One of the things that the attorney said to me to convince me and coerce me and put me in the fear to accept the guilty plea was that the victim had positively identified me, had seen my photo, and once she seen my photo, she started crying uncontrollably, and that she was in the courtroom at that moment waiting to testify against me, and that they were positive that it was me, and that she was ready to go to trial and testify. So that was a factor that the attorney told me, the public defender, because I didn't have money for a private attorney. Now, let's jump back forward to now. I've served the 7 years. Now I'm civilly committed. Now, at this point in civil commitment, just like any traditional civil commitment, we have the Department of Human Service. Their job was to provide treatment and therapy for whatever illness or whatever they felt that a person meet. I didn't meet any of the criteria, so I sat there. But one thing that was blessed, one good thing that happened was during the course of it, we have to have a civil commitment hearing. So an attorney was assigned to me. Attorney name was John Dewar, one of the greatest men on earth to me. I said to him, I said, listen, I'm innocent, man. I took the guilty plea because I thought I was coming home 2 years and I could be with my son, my family. And now I'm sitting here 7 years in prison. Now I'm sitting here, they talking about a life sentence because civil commitment is a life sentence. So I told him what happened. And so he said, I'm going to take a chance. He said, I'm going to go investigate. So him and his investigator, they went and located the victim, went to her house, took my photo, sat down, and they said, okay, this is Mr. Roberts. He's civilly committed for the crime against you. She looked at my photo and said, I don't know who that is. She said, I've never seen this guy a day in my life. They look and they looking at each other puzzled, like this is possible. Because he's sitting there locked up. They said he did it. They said you could, the police report said you cry uncontrollably once you seen his photo. She said, I never even been to the police station. In fact, she didn't even know anyone was locked up on the crime. And so once that came out from the victim, that she didn't even have any idea what the police reports were saying, that now, as I was saying all the time, the police reports was proven to be fabricated. That the police had made up the whole story against me. And now here's the victim corroborating that. I thought, and my attorney thought that would be enough evidence to get me out, but it wasn't. The judge in my case, who refused to admit that he made any wrong and refused to admit any guilt, refused to grant me relief. Now, I'm gonna say this part before I go on. Now, if you ever meet a judge or see a judge that admits they did something wrong, you've met like a mythical creature, like something like a unicorn or a leprechaun, something that doesn't supposed to exist. Because judges do not admit they're wrong. So if you ever get that in your course of studies to see that, note it and record it, because it's just not real. So this judge, my judge, he refused to grant me the relief, even though the victim, who had became my champion and who was fighting alongside me now to get me released, was enough. So we learned that there was a rape kit done. So we fought for the rape kit to get done so that we can do the examination to test my DNA to what was found in the materials in the DNA. We went to the prosecutor's office. Lo and behold, the whole rape kit and all other evidence, swabs, everything pertaining to it had disappeared. They couldn't find it. It was gone out of evidence. I mean, and this is what they stood on for maybe 8 years, 8.5 years, 9 years, that they couldn't find any evidence, any of the kit. But in the course of this, I continued to fight in court, appellate court, continued to fight in higher courts. Well, I was successful in higher courts of getting reversals and sent back down for another evidentiary hearing, which the judge denied. So the higher court, in their frustration, removed the judge and gave me a new judge and appointed me a new attorney. Once that happened, that's when things changed. Now the new judge, the new attorney, the prosecutor didn't have the leverage they had with the former judge. So now their leverage in the courtroom changed. The dynamics in the courtroom changed. So the new attorney, Michael Pasticalli, who was equally one of the greatest men on earth to me, and asked the judge to have the prosecutor office take another look and see if they can locate the evidence. And lo and behold, out of boom, mysteriously, this large box of evidence, swabs, DNA, samples, popped out of nowhere. Oh, they said we mislabeled it. Oh, it was sitting there all the time. We just overlooked it. I mean, I don't know how they overlooked it for 9 years. Evidence, a big giant box. You know, I just don't get it. We were just, but anyway, I was going through a great dynamic at that point, because one side of me was happy and one side of me was angry. So I was going back and forth. Yay! But once I got past that, they sent the DNA and the swab to the state lab, and the state lab confirmed that I did not contribute any of the material to the DNA, and that I was excluded as a perpetrator and vindicated and exonerated. That for me was one of the moving points of my life. I mean, still to this day, I can remember the feeling I felt when they told that, and they said that in open court, and the relief that felt like 1,000 pounds had been moved off my shoulders, and that now the truth had came out all these years in prison, because now it was 18 years later. Now it was, I served 18 years on this wrongful conviction. Now my family was there, my loved ones was there, and they were in the courtroom when the judge finally said, which was heartfelt, and to me, when the judge apologized, this new judge, and the sincerity in the judge's voice, and when the judge vacated my conviction, my family and my friends and loved ones all erupted in the courtroom. Yeah, I mean, they was celebrating. I mean, they was having church back there. I thought if I was going to turn around, they was going to be rolled on the ground out there, because they was really, praise the Lord, because they had went through the struggle too with me, because it wasn't just me being incarcerated, me in prison, they were in prison too. And so it was their vindication too. My mother, my sisters, my brothers, my loved ones, they were vindicated. So they had the right to feel victorious and celebrate, because I was proven to be innocent. Now, throughout the course of all this period of time, me fighting, I constantly wrote to the Innocence Project, who opened the file on me. So I wrote them like 200 letters, at least. So I didn't have to, but it was just my practice to just overwrite. And they always responded. They never turned their back on me. They never discouraged me. Like, we don't have any room for you. We can't help you. They always said, this is what we can do. This is what we need. This is where the law is. This is where they always kept me abreast throughout the journey about what was going on. And once the GNA was established, they reached out to me and listen, you need any experts, any attorneys, any help, we got you. And so, but at that time, the ball was rolling in a way where my release was imminent. And so, but their offer to help at that point was always welcome. So I was exonerated and released on March 14, 2014. And my release was, one of the pivotal point of my life. Now, coming home and reentry was a issue and remained an issue because I spent 18 years in prison, surviving in an inhumane environment, being treated inhumane, living in inhumane conditions, dealing with a negative, tense energy all for these years in and out. That I came home with scar, and so the Innocence Project reached out to me, and sort of adopted me as a son, as a surrogate, one of their own, which I am, and so they offered me all the services they had available to me: social work services, opportunities to participate in different groups with other exonerees, opportunity to participate in conferences, to share my story. And they gave me a platform to use my voice. And that platform and using my voice helped me therapeutically because I had opportunity to talk to others and share the story and my experience to try to bring a greater public awareness of wrongful imprisonment, prosecutorial misconduct, ineffective assistance of counsel, and judicial misconduct. And with this platform and with the resources the Innocence Project provided for me, I was able to not only help myself, but also share this and help other exonerees and help others understand what wrongful conviction looks like and put a face to it and emotions to how it looks. Someone who spent time in prison wrongfully, 18 years myself. And just like Kurt said, how it was a struggle, and it still is a struggle because it's still a sense of victimization in certain states like mine, New Jersey, who, because of one of the statute says that anyone who pled guilty cannot be given compensation. So I wasn't compensated because of the fact that I was coerced by my attorney and tricked to plead guilty. That factor took me out of the opportunity to be compensated by the state of New Jersey, in which I'm currently involved in a civil lawsuit in federal court. It has been successful in moving forward to get compensated and be some settlement. But those things are factors. And so in giving my story and telling you the events of my life, I would hope that if I've shared some information that can inspire you and help you move forward to study law, study sociology, or study society at large, and look at the whole picture and how the role that you could play as students in higher learning to help figure out what could be done and what you could contribute to the Innocence Project and to others to help prevent these things from happening. And at this point, I'm open for any questions that anyone has. I'll give it back to Nigel.
Right. Thank you, Rodney. Thanks for sharing your story. I know we have some questions from the crowd. I don't know if Isaiah, if you wanted to actually share them, or did you want me to kind of?
Yeah. Well, we have some questions from the club, and then I'll open it up to audience questions as well. Mm-hmm. You want me to kind of alternate again, kind of like we did?
Yes, you can alternate. Yep.
All right. Keith, Actually, just start with one for, I guess, both of you. Would you tell us, what does exoneration mean to you?
Exoneration. It's a difficult word. I wish there was a better word to describe it, because I always meet people. They won't know what that means. But to be exonerated is to be cleared of all charges legally. It's a reversal of what everybody said before. The whole, your freedom kind of thing. And Rodney he spoke on that already. We're free, but we'll never be free of this. We're not incarcerated anymore. I'll carry this to the day I die. Things I've seen, things I've experienced, the scrambled eggs of my brain now, having to go from one subculture, society, prison, and I'm still a convict because that's the way I grew up. I spent 33 years from when I was 26 till I was 60 in prison. You can't just forget about that. So that's what I am. I know a lot of things, kind of deal, but the free part, not so much. Unincarcerated, yes. Cleared of the charges, proven not guilty, kind of thing is what it kind of means. To be exonerated, it means someone says you didn't do it, and that someone trumps the people who said before that you did it. It's so that's how I kind of feel about it. It's always a great day not to be in prison. I say that every day to many, many people, but it's great. It's the freedom, but it's like a tethered dog. You get so far. Rodney, I don't know if he feels the same way I do. You have that experience. You can't go away from it. You're experiencing stuff today that will be with you the rest of your life, maybe. And so this will be something I'll never forget. It'll be always with me. It's in my being. I'm a convict. I'm just not incarcerated. I've been exonerated, which I hope people understands that I didn't do it. It's not an O.J. Simpson type thing. I still get people who think, well, it was a technicality in my case. If they had two trials and people said you did it, well, by God, you did it. Because in this country, you are guilty until proven innocent. Even though, Rodney, will they teach you you're innocent until proven guilty? That is not true. And I'll argue with anybody that says the contrary, because if you get your ass in a ringer, you're done. I was done by people who were making stories up. It was the Wizard of Oz. The odontologist said so, so therefore I did it. And it wasn't one. There were two that testified, and there were 6 altogether that agreed. So what does that say about the whole field of bite mark evidence? If 6 people were wrong, how many wrongs, as I said before to DOJ back early days when I got out, I said, how many wrongs do you have to have before you realize it's wrong? So, exoneration, it's freedom. It's your rights back. It's taking you from this spot and putting you in another spot, but you don't fee it. I'll never fee it. This society out here is altogether different from what I'm accustomed to or were. Sometimes I felt safer, or today, sometimes I feel safer in prison because I know who I was dealing with. At Walmart, I don't know. At the drugstore, I don't know. At the riding down the road, I don't know who they are. When I was in prison, I know who they are, and I knew how to deal with them. Out here, people are so disrespectful. If it happened inside, they would have a bad day. I'll just say that way. Just simple stuff. Just the simplest stuff. It's just crazy. But that's okay. But that's what exoneration is to me. It's proof that I didn't do it. It's not saying that I didn't say I didn't do it, which I did from the very beginning. It's other people, just like other people put me in. Other people says, okay, he didn't do it. So that's kind of what exoneration is to me.
I mean, listening to Keith, every exoneree experiences things different. Like every person experiences their situation differently. And I just, want to, that's, Keith's feelings are so valid, and that, and that is his experience, and I stand with him in his experience. And, but for myself, is, things were a little different for me, because, I had to survive, and just like him and anyone else. And then survival for me meant, I'm a God-fearing man, and I always knew I was innocent, so I was always exonerated because I knew God knew the truth. I knew I didn't do it, so I walk with that sense of pride, and I walk with a sense of freedom even there. And I was never in my mind and heart, I was never in prison. I was just physically there because emotionally, psychologically, and I was free. I was, they never had my mind, and I think that helped me because that was the only way I was able to function there and not allow myself to be overwhelmed and become complacent and overwhelmed by the sadness of my situation, and being locked up in a prison environment, hostile environment. So so exoneration to me meant that I was clear even then. I was exonerated the moment I was arrested. I was exonerated throughout the whole process. I was exonerated the moment I was released. I'm exonerated now because the word exonerated just means cleared. I had cleared myself because I knew I was innocent, and I knew that they had no right to do what they were doing to me. And so, exoneration for me today, like Keith said, means someone acknowledged that I was right, but I knew it all the time. And so because I knew it all the time, and the people who believed in me also knew it and fought and struggled with me, and people who fought in my behalf knew it as well, that gave me a sense of confidence to look at myself as a free man. And even though I was locked up, I was free. And the prison was not who I am, it's where I was. And although coming home and have to have survived in an environment like that, and the scars that come with it, and the psychological and emotional scars that you develop, I sit today and I'm, as an exonerated man, still free.
Thank you. Keith, talked a little bit about your encounter with kind of faulty forensic science, but also you, like many others, were a victim of eyewitness misidentification. What would you say to others in that position right now? How can they maintain hope when all seems lost?
Well, we know it's eyewitness testimony is just as bad as anything else, and there's a possibility, that there could be something there, but when the police get involved in the way they do it, the lineups and all that stuff, and Nigel can speak to that. The Innocence Project is lobbying tooth and nail to try to get some type of organization or a rule book or something set up to say, okay, if you're going to do this, follow these steps. And it's just like forensic science. If you're going to use some type of forensic science as evidence, then it should meet criteria like fingerprints do, like DNA do, even though it's not all that's not totally 100%, but it's close enough. It's better than somebody saying, yeah, that looks like the guy. But, if you watch the Netflix Innocence Files. I'm in episode 3. The woman I supposedly raped, she is sitting there in front of the camera talking about, it don't even look like the guy. Because she's got the actual photograph of Jerry Crotty. She has the sketch that she made back then. And if you watch the Innocence Files, they superimpose his actual picture with his sketch, with the sketch at the time of the crime. And it's like, wow, that's like x-rays. It looks like the same person. But the police weren't looking for him. They had me. So therefore, the square pegs were filed off for me to fit. So there's the eyewitness saying suggestions, could it be him? Does it look like him? Or, for example, they show a presentation as they did it in past. They got caught for that. Say it was 6 figures, 4 of them were blue and 1 of them was green. They say, that green one, you sure? And well, it's, the mind goes, it's suggested. It's worthless is what it is. It's totally worthless. I don't care. If there's some other way, use it, but don't go to it because you take a woman that's been raped. I mean, okay, describe what it looks like. That's the last thing she wants to do. Think about the victim. But no, let's get you in there. The guys, they look like this, they look like that, they look like your husband, they look like me. No. Nigel, speak on what the Innocence Project is trying to do with this, with the eyewitness thing.
Okay, so yes, so when I started working at Innocence Project, well, actually I started as an intern, and I didn't know. You watch a lot of TV shows and you hear like eyewitness evidence. You think that's like open and shut. It's the most foolproof evidence, but that is not true, especially when it comes across racial lines. So when the perpetrator is one race and the victim is another race, it's kind of faulty. And there's also many different factors that go into a faulty eyewitness identification. So at the Innocence Project, we push for a regulation in eyewitness identification, eyewitness identification processes. So usually in the eyewitness identification process, an actual witness is shown either have a photo lineup, which is a group of photos of suspects, or what you see a lot on movies is a physical lineup. So what we at the Innocence Project have pushed is for a blinded administration of a lineup. So what that means is the police officer who's actually conducting this lineup doesn't know who the suspect is, because this leads to all types of biases. So that's the main one. We just want another person to conduct the lineup who won't subconsciously or consciously actually push to the identification of a certain person, because if sometimes it's so early in the crime, the true suspect hasn't even been in custody yet. So this kind of forces a witness to actually point the finger at a person who might not be there. So as of now, we've achieved those reforms in over 20 states. And we're pushing further and further to get them in all states so that we can help prevent these things from happening again.
Nigel, what does a field organizer do, or what do you do in that capacity for the Innocence Project?
So in my capacity of the Innocence Project, I started actually as a policy analyst, and I'm a attorney by training. So what I do and what I did in my former role was I did a lot of legal research for the department to see what laws that we're passing, if everything is up to snuff, and do a lot of research with cases and see how it affects the cases and any cases that might highlight the miscarriages of justice. Now, as a field organizer, I actually help work to actually create connections on a grassroots level, either be it with schools as we're here with the University of South Dakota, or the faith-based community, or other grassroots community organizations, because a lot of our work, it starts from the grassroots level. And I always say that our clients are our greatest advocates. So we have Keith and Rodney here. And when you're trying to pass a law, there's no better way to actually get through to a legislator or a lawmaker than having an affected person there, a person who was actually harmed by these eyewitness identification methods and harmed by these forensic science methods that help push change. Because I can sit there and speak to a person all day about what could happen or what could have happened, but when a Keith or Rodney walks into your office and speaks to you directly and lets you know that I was in prison for 18, 20 some odd years and I lost my freedom because of a law that is unjust, that helps to push for the change. So I, as a field organizer, try to help on the grassroots level to help achieve these reforms and help our policy department.
Rodney, if I'm getting this right, you had to serve more time than you were sentenced to, essentially because they didn't like your answer or your attitude when they asked you about it. Do you think that, in light of your experience, do you think that there's maybe a different way to do this, or would you just talk about it a little more?
In light of my different way to do it, as far as what the how I was treated when I told them I was innocent, is that the?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. I mean, the system is the way it is. Because that part of the system is it was administrative, and it's the way it is. They don't believe a prisoner. It's not, they don't, there's no prisoners telling the truth. So to change, there's no real way to say how things would change in that aspect, because the only way to be able to change that is to avoid it from happening, to try to create laws, different statutes, different tests of evidence, different methods of being able to rein the prosecutor office in and being able to turn over that exculpatory evidence that would prevent a person from being wrongfully convicted. Because once it happened, and once you're in that situation that I was in, I wound up doing more time because I maintained my innocence. It's an after effect of the court judicial system betraying me and erroneously put me in prison. And even though I pled guilty to the crime itself, it put me in that position to coerce me and force me to feel like I was saving my life to do this. So the real fight is in the pre-strike. Prevention is better than cure, and that type of mindset. And because there's no way to change the mindset once you're there. And no matter what I said to them, and how often I said it and how vigorously I said it to them, they would just refuse to believe anything I said, because in their mind, they say things like, how do you tell a prisoner is lying? Because his mouth is moving, his lips are moving. So they are set in stone in that regard. So, my quest has been to fight to prevent a person from having to be in that position, to change the system in that way.
I think probably last club question here before we turn over to audience questions. Would the two of you also talk a little bit more about the process of re-entering society and what that's been like for you now that you're exonerated?
Well, for me, I'll go first. For me, it's a tough road to hoe because the time period, length of time that I was incarcerated, because everybody, as far as public records and things like that. Everything went from like paper to microfiche to being uploaded and all that kind of stuff. I had no record. It took me 2 weeks to have an identity in the state of North Carolina. I was incarcerated, convicted in Virginia. I immediately came home when I was released and lived with my brother. And it took me 2 weeks because I had to get a birth certificate. I had to get another form of identification before I could get a state identification, not a driver's license, just a state identification type thing. So I had no social security cards. I had to go get a social security card. I had to get, like I said, I had to get my birth certificate. I could have committed crimes. I mean, apparently I just did not exist in the state of North Carolina because I guess it was, we haven't heard from Mr. Harward in 30 years. So apparently he either is dead or he moved. So he's not our problem. So we won't list him anymore. Imagine that, but that's kind of what happened. So, you know, I could have had the worst driving record in the world and it wouldn't have made any difference. But I still had to go through the test as if I was 16 years old because I had no driving record. I had no credit. Therefore, I couldn't borrow any money. But luckily for me, the Innocence Project, they support exonerees through a program and they help you out for the first year. Also, I'm a veteran, so the VA stepped in and gave me some back money they owed me for a disability. I've got a broken finger I got when I was in the service. So, you know, I had money. I couldn't even put it in the bank because I had no identification. You know, well, how about a tax bill? Well, I was in prison. Well, how about a receipt from your rental place? Contact Virginia. They were paying the rent. You know, so I did not exist. So it was tough. I mean, you know, it was tough. Even after I had money in the bank, a small amount of money, I had no credit. I couldn't even buy a stinking riding lawnmower because I had no credit. If I had bad credit, I could have bought a riding lawnmower, you know, or if I had good credit, I could have bought it. But I couldn't even buy a stinking riding lawnmower because I had no points, because there was no record of me, you know, having credit or anything. So it was tough for me, I must say, and it's still tough. But, you know, technology, you know, forget about it. You know, I got a Facebook account. A family member, because I didn't know anything about technology, a family member gave me a Facebook account. So I went over and started looking. These people like me, I don't even know how to pronounce their names. So I said, I don't want this. I don't want this at all. So I went on to take it off. Now I have 2 accounts. Thank you very much. But I don't look at it because I don't care about people's bowel movements and stuff like that. So, there you go. That's my story.
Oh, wow, good. Keith was my man. I mean, for me, reentry is, you know, I went through different periods, different phases. Especially when I first came home, you know, I was blessed to come home with a great support system, you know, family, housing, you know, but, you know, but the whole change, things had changed so much for me. 18 years of teenage life, you know, 17 years that's teenage life. So society had changed so much culturally, you know, socially, technologically. Like, you know, when I finally got a phone, you know, I didn't know what to do with it because, you know, when I left, phones was like this big. When I came home, it was like this, you know, and they started making noise. I thought I broke it. I mean, I had to catch up with technology with itself. And, you know, things, you know, it became a quest for me. I mean, a quest to work on myself, because that was the biggest issue, because there was so much I was so confused about. And the confusion was just me having these ideas of society while sitting in a prison cell compared to the reality of society once I got there. And you know, my vision was definitely not in tune with how the society had progressed through all those years. And so, you know, I had to look at it from a self-care, so like from a holistic self approach, and look at the whole of me. And the stress, my physical vitality. I had to look at things from, my circle, saying my cultural experiences and cultural environment. I mean, my ability to earn, and my ability to adjust and cope and adapt. I had to look at it from those points because I had to struggle with the fact that I wasn't compensated and I had no money. And that was like the biggest issue that was causing the most stress for me, because you have to have money to survive. You have to, you're not going to live anywhere for free. There's no, food. You got to, clothes, shelter, and those are the things that always was in my forefront of my mind. And you're looking for employment, first come home and the one thing that's a big problem in the exoneration and exoneree community and the wrongful conviction community is that no state has like a specific agency available for the wrongful convicted to go to, like somewhere like an office where we could go and say, look, I just come home, I was wrongfully in prison for these many years, and because of that, I need help with housing, therapy, transportation, employment. They don't have that resource in no state. So you're left to deal with the reentry programs in your community and your counterparts are those who are home on parole and probation. And for me, those were the individuals that I was competing with for employment. And, when I would go for job interviews and, a lot of the guys that are employees or employers, I will say to me, hey, man, you're a great guy, man. And sorry, what happened to you? Because I thought that because I was innocent, I didn't do it, that put me like in a forefront, to get the job. I mean, I didn't do it. I'm innocent. I'm home now. What I'm saying? So I should get the job. But in the structure of society has changed so much that most employers and jobs and companies and corporations, they were getting so many tax benefits and tax deductions and tax opportunities to hire those on parole and probation. That became an industry within itself. So they were hired on parole and probation before me because it was more economically influential for them. So that I was, wasn't even getting the jobs there. So fortunately for myself, I was able to participate in some job opportunities I was given working in certain programs, and I was given a chance to work in reentry myself as a case manager for an organization called OR. And I was my mentor was a beautiful woman named Jenny Brown, who helped me and trained me in case management and how to help others. And in turn of that, it helped me evaluate myself better. It helped me understand myself, reentry better. But then on the other hand, with my reentry, I was living a Viva Loca, and I still am. I mean, it was, I can't say that I haven't had lots of fun too. I have great memories. I have great people in my life too. I've traveled, I've been around, I've met so many wonderful people. So it has been a roller coaster ride, so to speak, emotionally, psychologically, sociologically, all the leads, Bruce Lee, Jet Li, all the leads I've been. So, to be honest, still today I'm struggling. Still today is a financial struggle for me because I haven't been compensated. But I manage because I feel I'm multi-talented and I have so much to offer, and I rely and I believe in myself in that way, and I offer my services and I step out on that strength and that so. But the reentry process for me has been an up and down road. There have been some moments I've been happy, sad, stressed out sometimes, and coping with things at some time. But I've always managed to have ability to pull myself together and find my moral compass and continue to move the needle forward. And so, it is, I'm not saying that as if saying I have this system, but I can honestly say, I've had a better sense of things in reentry than most because of the people around me and the people who have cared for me and continue to care for me. Because it was so many times I had no clue. And because of people around me who provided me with clues and direction, and I was able to adjust a little more easier than a lot of guys. And I thank God for that.
Let's move to some audience questions.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello,
Yes.
hello.
Hello.
So this is a question for Rodney. My name is Brett. I'm from the Sociology Club, and so this is directed at Rodney. How did your separation from your son while you were incarcerated impact the two of you?
Wow, that's a great question, because that question's been asked at a time when I didn't expect the answers. I was it impacted my relationship in different ways over a period of time of his development. Because I had him when we were together. I left. He was young, 8 years old, so he really didn't know what was going on. He had really no clue, and all he knew is that his father was gone, and and for me, it was one of the most stressful times of my life, because I was heartbroken that I left him out there, and I felt like, wow, how, what can I do to get to him? And I was so afraid for him and so worried about him more than myself. And for him, it was different because he was so young. And so my family who got surrounded around him was able to, at that age, maybe tell him, oh, he's away, he's in college. And when he was young, he believed that. But as he got older, he stopped believing, because, his friend Bill's father is in college and he comes home. Why doesn't my father come home and he's in college? So why is he not here? So, he was asked this question, and I got this directly from him. And it really shook me up, because I was on a talk show and he was in the audience, and the host of the talk show asked him directly, how did he feel? And he told him, he said at first, he was confused, he was young and he didn't know. And then he said, once he got older, he started being angry at me, because he felt I just left him and didn't care for him. And because he didn't know what happened, he just knew I was gone all of a sudden. And that he felt that I didn't love him. And that hurt me. And to hear him say that hurt me, because I loved him more than anything. He didn't know. And he said that, he would ask questions and no one would really tell him the truth. And because of that, he just felt like I didn't care about him. And he said, and as he got older and he started asking questions on his own and more mature questions, once he found out the truth, he felt hurt that he had hated me or been mad at me like that for so long. And, it was, for both of us. And once he found out the truth, he reached out, he started trying to help me win my freedom, help me write in me more, and trying to let me know, he asking me to forgive him, and I'm asking him to forgive me. You know what I'm saying? And we worked as a team, and we, I thank God that he was raised the way he has been. He's a great guy. I love the way he is today. He's very God-fearing, hardworking, very kind-hearted, very polite, very sociable, and the ills of the things in society that been growing up without a father, without somebody there, my family and love those who care for him, he was able to overcome to a degree where he's a great guy today. And so it was so hard, to hear and to be away from him, and finally to hear that he was, really angry with me, thinking that I didn't love him, and not knowing that everything I was doing was for him. The fight and the fight to get home, the taking a guilty plea was to get home to him, and to stand vigilant and learning the law and keep my head up and dealing with the situation and trying to stay in power and stay encouraged was for him. And, that it was a struggle. And thank God that today we have a beautiful relationship. You know what I'm saying? You know, he's a big guy now. He's like 6'4", a big guy. You know, he hugs me like I'm an action figure now, and you know, I'm another guy compared to him, and so you know, it's just great that things. I thank God for the way things turned out because it could have been worse, and it could have went terribly wrong had I not had the support of my family to help him through the process. And I mean, I hope that answers the question, but you know.
Thank you. Lou? Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I know this is a very difficult thing, and I should have prefaced this by saying if there's some things you don't want to share, you know, keep things.
Oh, no. It's okay. I mean, for me to share with you is all right because helps me as well, you know, to let it out, you know what I'm saying, to be a part of the story and let everyone know what it is that goes on when you're wrongfully in prison. And, you know what I'm saying, these are the things that are real things. And these are real emotions that, you know, you hear about people being wrongfully in prison and hear about people coming home, but just part of the emotional aspect of it is never shared. And this is what I want you to know about the struggles that goes in this way as well. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Thank you again for answering that. There's another question for both of you. What advice do both of you have for young people who ever find themselves accused of something they didn't do?
Well, hope you can find somebody that's got legal brains, and that ain't a guarantee. I had an attorney because it would have cost so much with a capital case. Family lawyer contacted one of his buddies. He showed up at the courtroom at the jailhouse when they finally brought me in, and he said, "Well, you know, I don't see how they can convict you of this stuff, but they're pretty well convinced that you did it." And that was about the only advice I got from him. Then I got 2 court-appointed attorneys, and they're great people. I've been to their synagogue, I spoke to their people, their parishioners and stuff. They were just out of their league. You know, you got the city, you've got the state, you've got the federal government behind the municipality. And on the other hand, you know, unless you've got somebody like, you know, the people at the Innocence Project or, you know, F. Lee Bailey's or these type people, you ain't got a stinking chance, you know, unless you got a buttload of money. And that's how the law works. You got money, you know, you get breaks, but, you know, it can happen to anyone. That's the thing. You know, the person that asked the question, you could leave today and be on the way home. Somebody knock off a convenience store down the street, and somehow or another you're driving a car that matches it, but just the color, and you're in. If they want to do it, you're in. And if you're lucky enough to be able to find somebody, you know, every case is different. Every case is different, but hope that you're able to find someone that's got the legal mind to counteract the other criminal legal minds, which is what happened in my case. They're all criminals. It's been proven. Judge on down. And not just my case, other cases that they were involved with. You know, if they want you, they're going to get you. They'll find a way, you know, and you know, and they'll make a case. I mean, I'm an example. Rodney's an example. They'll find a way to convict you if they want to, but hope that you don't get in that situation. But you know, you don't know. You have no clue what's happening down the street or in the house next door or in the bathroom. You don't know. But if somebody wants to put you there, they'll lie. They'll find a way to lie. They'll make up evidence, forensic science. They'll make it up. Eyewitnesses, they'll make it up. They'll find a way. Here I am. And if you don't believe that, then you shouldn't be here. But I'm glad you are, because you're here to support this type of thing. So there you go. it's tough. Just hope you're able to find someone that can help you, from the very beginning, because you're fighting a municipality, a bureaucracy, and if they want you, they got you. And then once they got you, as they did in Rodney's case, and they did the same thing in Virginia, they didn't want pedophiles on the street, so they just, once date was up, they locked them up in a place. They had a fence around, just like a prison, and said, okay, well, you're not convicted anymore, but you're self-imposed by your actions, kind of like a parole board. I wouldn't never admit to what I did because I didn't do what I did. I was never going to get out, as far as parole was concerned. But when the Innocence Project got involved, I know this is not the answer to the question, but I got to say it. Once the Innocence Project got involved in Skagit Arts, the governor wanted to give me a pardon. They want to parole me all the way back to North Carolina. They want all that stuff. And I said, no, you can stick it in your keister. I'm going home the way I'm supposed to, and people are going to know about it, because a crime is committed. A person is a suspect is found. A court of law convicts that person, and that's it. That's it. It happens every day in this country. In your town, you don't know it unless it's a big case. And if it's a big case, then, that's all media. That's all media, like most of the world today. And I don't even know what the question, but I wanted to say that. I just felt like I need to say that. So I apologize. But convict me. What's the worst they can do to me? Oh, it's already happened. That's my look on life. I've been to prison for something I didn't do. Screw the rest of it. I don't stress over stuff I don't have to. I don't worry about stuff. I'm lucky enough to have a compensation because they know they did wrong. Rodney, hopefully one day he will, but that's the case in a lot of. I met a guy a couple years ago at a convention, a conference for Innocence Network. He'd been out 20 years and working. He took an Albert plea, And if you got no money, you take an Albert plea. You got no money, you got to hit the ground running. You got to work. They're not going to hire an ex-con. Churches and support groups aren't there anymore because politics have removed all that. Let's take a bite out of crime. Let's eliminate this. Let's lock everybody up. And let's don't worry about, the results. If we lock up one innocent person but get 11 guilty people, that's all right. And that's how it happens in this world, in this country. How many of y'all been set in a trial? I mean, the time I went, the 2 times, didn't turn out good. But I've been to court. I've been to 2 courts. I went just one time. I didn't know. I just went in just to sit at a trial. And it's me, the groupies, and the poor fella sitting over there accused of murder. And that's it. There's nobody there to see if things are going right in the courtroom. If the prosecutor, they're bringing a blind dog in because he, said somebody did it. Because people don't care enough. You need to be, and you are. And thank you for this, because you're all involved with this. Whatever you end up in your life, the students, the other people in an audience, thank you for doing this, for participating. It's not all sour grapes, but the fact of the matter is, people don't care about this because it doesn't touch your life. But once it does, just like I tell people, if you don't have somebody in prison, or you've had somebody in prison, or you haven't been in prison yourself, you have no clue. You can't watch Oprah. You can't CSI effect. DNA don't come back in 50. That's all crap. And how many TV shows are there on television? Why would you want to go on a cruise ship? They got cruise ship murder episodes on television. The Forensic File shows, all these different shows. Why do people have such a need to see crimes and all this stuff and see people convicted, but they don't want to participate? They don't want to go actually see this. They want to sit on their couch and say, kill the bastard. just because that's how they presented it on television. But I'll stop. But thank y'all for being involved with it. And you know, participation is what it is. And thank you for participating and taking the time to hear our stories. And maybe you can come to conclusion. Maybe I can get involved. Nigel can tell you about what the Innocence Project does with interns that come on their own dime. They don't get paid a penny because they won't be involved, because they have the heart. Those people are my hero because they don't do it for the money. I've been to their houses. They're not living on the golf course. They're taking the train. They're doing it because of their heart. And I hope this, if nothing else, some of you students out there will go into this. It's not a big field. You're not going to be flashy. You're not going to make money. But every time someone gets out, if you donate a dime to this project or anything to do with wrongful convictions, once you do, you're involved, and the next person get out is yours. You can say, I got that person out just by helping out. You can claim that. I tell people, you've given money before to the Innocence Project. I'm yours. You gave me life. So thank you for that.
The question was, what could I tell someone? What would my advice be if someone who was just coming out, if they was in my situation, being wrongfully in prison? You know, hindsight is 20/20. I mean, from this position today, I could say all these magnificent things, to do this, you should do that, and you know, you could do this, and you should. I mean, I agree with a lot that it's hard to, you know, to put a finger on what I would have done and what I would say. It was, you know, the first thing they do, and the first thing the person have to do is not feel alone. You know, it starts in an emotional state, in the psychological part of it, because you feel isolated, you feel powerless, you feel alone because you're already in custody for something you didn't do. So you know you could be held because you're there already, and you feel like, you know, you're trying to explain this to someone, your family members, and you're trying to tell people I'm innocent, and then, well, everyone else is saying that too in there. You know, you could ask anyone in jail, what are you here for?
Everybody's innocent.
I'm
Prison.
innocent. You know what I'm saying? What are you here for? I didn't know, the man set me
Ain't
up.
nobody done nothing wrong.
What are you here for? You know, the system did me wrong. I ain't innocent. I mean, so everyone is saying it. And so it's not like if you have a unique platform to yourself that identifies you as someone saying I'm innocent, and so it's just it's an emotional, like I said, psychological challenge and struggle to overcome those things. I mean, if a person can overcome the fear and those feelings early, then they could put themselves in a position so they can reach out and build a collective of people who support, and they can talk to and explain this to, and I'm innocent, and those people that they can believe them. But, you know, my only advice, the only thing I would say different is that don't be overwhelmed by the circumstances and the hardship and the difficulties of the wrong that's being done to you. I mean, it's hard to feel like a victim. You know, it's hard to be, you know, victimized. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to feel that way. You know, I mean, I had a guy tell me, you know, he was a car thief, and he stole cars until one day he came out of his house and his car was stolen. And he said he felt so hard. He cried because he felt victimized. But, you know what I'm saying? Imagine all the people here. But so it's hard to feel that way, that somebody's doing you wrong, to being treated so unfairly, to being feel like why is this happening to me? You know, and you have to overcome that. And if a person can overcome that part of it, they stand a chance, because then they can think their way through it, because those things overpower your rational mind and it overpower your thought process because you're hurt. You know what I'm saying? You're feeling you like, listen, why are you doing this to me? Nobody believe me. Why I'm here? And you're trying to get that part of it because it's so fresh, so new. So that's the first thing that's the main one thing I would say to people. If I could, just relax, calm down, and take a deep breath, and take a step back, and just think about it, and hold up. And I know it's overwhelming. I know you hurt, and I know it's scary, and I know you know what I'm saying. No one believes you. I know you feel victimized. But with all that on you, can you take a moment to say, "Hold, let me try to figure this out. Let me see, who I could talk to, who I could trust, who I could reach out to, who I know that really know my character, know this is not who I am, who can help verify where I was at, who, you know what I'm saying, to take the time to do those things. And that's the only chance you stand if you can compartmentalize yourself in that way.
Thank you, you two. I have a question for Keith. Keith, what kind of compensation were you given after the exoneration? If you could maybe talk a little bit more about that, that'd be great.
Well, not every state has compensation plans set up. And unless you're, in my case, I was in Virginia, and if you're exonerated, in other words, they say you didn't do it, then they have a compensation plan set up for the median income for up to 20 years. In other words, your time period up to 20 years, whatever the average income was for that year is what they compensate you. In my case, I was 13 years past that, 33 years. So Skaggs and Arps, the law firm that represented me along with the Innocence Project, had some of their people in their law firm, lawyers, went before the legislature and talked to some senators in Virginia. And what they did, they put in a bill, they passed a bill to compensate me for the 33 years is what they did because I didn't fit. Since then, I think they have some other type of deal set up because I guess, once again, because of me, they said, well, there may be others. Let's go ahead and factor that in now. So I don't know how that works the law. I don't care, but that's what they did for me. Some states have a thing set up. I think North Carolina, they give you $750,000. But in my case, I had to sign away all my rights as far as to be able to sue or do anything to anybody else. If I accepted this compensation plan, which I did because I spent 33 years in prison. I didn't have a lot. I didn't need a lot. And they said, okay, well, here's some money. Go away. I could have went with a federal lawsuit. We were going to do just the habeas alone was going to be $33 million. It'd probably be more than that, but that may take 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years in the federal courts. I'm on the curb now. I need money now. I accepted the state. I can talk about it. I just can't sue anybody. I tell how nasty those people are, and I can name names and point fingers and do all that stuff. That's one thing I insisted on, was that be in there, because I know people who have received compensation who are not allowed to speak about the settlement or anything. It's just like saying, okay, we pay you money. We're going to agree to disagree. You did it. We don't care. You're out. Because prosecutors, they don't care. Judges don't care. If you're wrong, you don't want to admit it. These people don't want to admit it because it's their lives. And it comes down to ego and monetary value. Prosecutors will be prosecutors, have to prosecute. Therein lies that problem. So you either elected or you have to buy your way in. So that's just an example right there. Something needs to be done there, because a prosecutor stay in office he has to convict. He is elected or hired on his convictions, not the people he let go. So if I don't meet my quota, I don't have a job. Simple. Kindergartners understand that, that's a problem. So that's how it worked out. They passed a bill. I had to accept an annuity. They gave me a lump sum. It comes out in payments. If I convict a felony, it all goes back to them. So they still got me about a short hairs. But I plan on not doing anything like that. So that's how that works. Every state's different. Some states don't have anything. And Rodney can tell you in his case, because of what he went through, he doesn't automatically compensation. You take an Alfred plea to be able to get out of prison so you can work on your case. You get no money until you file a lawsuit or they offer you something. So that's how it worked in my case. I said, give me money. I got to live. I'm 60 years old. Thank you very much. The taxpayers of the state of Virginia, because the politicians, it ain't their money. It's the great people of Virginia, the taxpayers of Virginia. And every time I see them, I'm out and about and I see somebody with Virginia tags, I always say, thank you for paying your taxes. If I see them in public, I'll say, thank you for paying your taxes. And if they ask me why you say that, I say, let me tell you a story. And I get to share again a wrongful conviction. And that's my job.
So this is a question that says for both of you too, but I think also, Nigel, if you want to add a little bit to this, I think this would be a good point to reference. How would you all, how do you think the justice system should be reformed from your personal experience? And also, Nigel, you talked about your professional experience as well.
I think Nigel should start.
Okay, yeah. So I have a lot to say. So as Rodney and Keith has said, it's kind of in our adversarial system now. It's kind of guilty until proven innocent. So there are a lot of reforms that I think that should be undertaken and that have been undertaken in a lot of different states. Because we have an adversarial system, a lot of discovery, which is the evidence that can point to somebody's innocence or guilt, isn't shared on both sides. So one thing that I'll push for is open file discovery. It's been passed in a couple of states, but I think it should be in all 50 states. Everything that a prosecutor has, the defense should have, and likewise. And this just helps to keep it on the up and up. It helps cut down on prosecutorial misconduct, which it kind of incentivizes prosecutors to kind of withhold evidence that might point to somebody's innocence. And that is a factor in wrongful convictions. And I also think that there should be some sort of, in all 50 states, some sort of penalty for prosecutorial misconduct. Many times we've seen instances of someone who has been convicted based on the withholding of evidence by prosecutors or officials, and all they get is oh, we're sorry, we found this, but the person who actually committed this doesn't get as much as a slap on the wrist. They, this is kind of it's a miscarriage of justice. That's the best thing that I can say. So I think that those two things are actually paramount in transforming our criminal justice system, and the focus on plea deals. So Rodney, over 90% of our cases, they don't even go to trial. People are being forced to take plea deals. You say you did it, you only do 1 or 2 years, or you say you do it and you're just on probation. But people don't know the downside of that. That you're basically, in order to take a plea, you have to admit that you're guilty. So even if you're innocent, you're looked at as a guilty person. And if you're on parole or probation and you actually violate that, then you can be sent back to jail for a crime that you didn't do, that you just said that you did, just in order to not see jail time. So I think that there should be a lack of emphasis on plea deals and more speedy trials, because that's a way that they get to force plea deals. A person could be sitting in jail for days, months. You know, they have jobs and families to get back to, and they just think to themselves, okay, I'll just say that I'll do it so that I can get back to my life. And many times, you can see in Rodney's case, that did not happen for over 18 years. So I think that those are things that can be reformed in our criminal justice system as soon as possible that can actually help. So I'll defer to Keith and Rodney so that they can share what they think.
I ditto what Nigel just said. Only part that I will add to is regarding the plea agreement process, which is the 95 to 97% of the criminal justice system is based on plea agreements. I mean, that's sad and horrible statistic, because that's only like maybe 4 to 5% of the people go to trial, and that system has been reinforced throughout the decades, and given that the word plea agreement is never mentioned not one time in the Constitution, it gives questions to how did all this come about. And so, I think that the plea agreement process itself needs to be revamped and challenged in a way, same way that Nigel just explained. And that's just my add-on to everything that was already said.
Well, in my case, forensic science is something that I was not aware of, and of course, I was just a normal human being who cares about forensic science. But there should be some type of clearinghouse organization that can establish certifiable, true scientific, blind tests, over and over again, proof that it works. I was involved in 2017. The Department of Justice had an organization that was comprised of judges, lawyers, teachers, scientists, mathematicians. I was the first exoneree to ever attend this in Washington, and the last, because that very day they shut it down. The new administration, previous administration, when they came in, didn't appreciate the fact that people were studying stuff to try to make rules and regulations and policies that would cause certain evidences to not be evidences and certain evidences to be legitimate evidences that have been proved. Of course, over time, things change. But as we know, some things are pretty well established, blood types, now DNA type of thing. It should be brought back to life again. It should be brought back to life. And this organization have teeth to say that, okay, for fingerprints to be legitimately used in the case and to be legitimate, they have to meet this criteria. DNA has to meet this criteria. The scientists, the doctors, the judges, the prosecutors, forget about the prosecutor. They don't ever show up for stuff. And other people, intelligent people, smart people, people can send things into the moon and make drag cars and stuff. And these were what these people were. They were fabulous people. And you can see that somewhere. It's on Netflix somewhere, I think, where I was there. This needs to be established because, forget about the people in the past. Yes, they need to be brought out just like I was. But if we stop it now, then we don't have to worry about the future. We don't have to worry about the great taxpayers covering those criminals, keisters, for what they did because they want to use something hocus pocus. They even hired a psychic in my case. Now, again, it was 1982. And Miss Cleo was on all TV shows, every commercial, hire Miss Cleo. They actually hired a psychic to solve this case. They hypnotized my only witness. They hypnotized the victim twice, and she couldn't identify me. I wonder why. Oh, I didn't do it. So to use this kind of stuff, they need to say no. Don't even come into court with it. But if a prosecutor wants to play this card, even though it's marked, he pulls it out of his deck and it's marked and he wants to play it, the judge he's not the gatekeeper in actuality. If there's law, he has to let it go. He doesn't say, well, you know, my years experience make me think only time he does that is when he wants to convict you. That's the only time he'll do that. Other than that, they'll stick to the law. So I think there should be something they can hold up and say, okay, we can't use three-legged dogs to identify a dead body. Well, who knows? That sounds funny. Bite mark evidence, people. Bite mark evidence. It's crap. So that's what I think should be done. They should, the eyewitness stuff, that there should be some kind of policy on that you can't do it unless it's videotaped and other people that aren't involved, just regular. They can get a jury up. Why they can't have people, you know, ready to come up and help with these type things to make sure the police doesn't take the wrong move? That may never happen. But if you got something they have to follow, a rule book, and by God, if they convict you, and the rules aren't right, well, hopefully the appellate court, somebody along the way will help you out. But if you can stop that from the beginning, and I think that would be something that can be done. The great professor Brandon Garrett at Duke University just released a book. It's called Autopsy of a Crime Lab. And he lays out these things. You know, slap in the forehead stuff. Why the hell ain't they doing it already? Because nobody's watching. You know, they don't have rules and regulations they have to follow in certain aspects. You know, and I think that that's something that should be done, along with what Rodney has said and Nigel said. The forensic science, you know, it's a lot of stuff's there, and a lot of it shouldn't be, but they're still using it. There's a case in Pennsylvania right now. Bite mark evidence is being allowed right now.
Thank you both again for sharing your stories. Another question that I have that you guys briefly talked about before about other claims of innocence while you guys were incarcerated. While incarcerated, did you meet anyone that you believe was also wrongly convicted?
Yes. Working as a paralegal, I was a paralegal in prison. I had an opportunity to work on a lot of individual cases, and I had an opportunity to be, consider myself gifted to help a lot of individuals get relief while I was there. And although in those cases there were, someone were guilty, but there were the technicalities in their cases. In a prison, there is a way of looking and just sensing someone's sense of sincerity when they're innocent by the things they do and the way they carry themselves and what they give them their time and energy to while they're there. Like, you'll find a lot of guys that say I'm innocent, but you'll see them outside playing basketball. You see them outside playing cards all day. You see them out working out all day, which is not bad workout, but just, so many other activities as opposed that's not working on their case. But they say, I didn't do it, but you don't see them doing anything that's invest in proving their innocence. And so you sort of say, well, man, this guy kind of questionable. He said he's innocent, but he don't do anything. He's, see him in the law library. He's not involved in any of the proactive movements that, to learn more and that talks about justice, and injustice, because you find yourself, if you're innocent, it's like myself and others, you'll find yourself involved in different institutional things that kick up injustices. Like when someone else is wrong, you find yourself fighting on the front line for them. Like, wow, that's wrong, because you know how you've been wrong. And so you could basically pick up on certain cues, certain behaviors, like I said, and certain ways a person does their time and how they read and how they study and what they do and what they're devoted to. And that gives you some of an indicator because there's no way to know, because no one is a mind reader, no one knows, and so there's no way to really know other than those social, subcultural social cues of a prison environment, and that help you say, well, hey, maybe this guy is innocent. Because look at him, look how he's acting, look what he's doing all day, look what he spends all this little bit of money on. You make $1.20 a day, $2 a day, but you're buying legal material, you're buying pens, paper, envelopes, and books with your little bit of money. I mean, and you're eating soups, like the little soups and peanut butter and jelly, because now you can't afford no real canteen. Because what was more important is getting you right into the courts and right into other organizations. So those are the things you notice and you pick up on. And you say, well, I kind of believe this guy because why would he be wasting his time in this way? If he didn't do it, because no one's in prison is gonna sit down and devote their time 100% of their time in that way if there's something that's not motivating them in that way. And so that's the only indicator for me, because if I was able to have that kind of ability to know those things, I would play the pick at 6'6". And so if I had that talent, I would be a millionaire. So that's it for me. That's how I was able to say, and I was able to help those guys in a better way.
Yeah, Rodney said it right. You can tell by people's character. You know what they are. You tell right away. But when I was at one institution, a guy named Jeff Cox, he got exonerated. He left. He was gone before I knew he was exonerated. He'd left and he worked with the FBI or something, and this a wire and the foreman and this and that and other. Anyway, they caught the guy that did it. They let him go. He's still. I hear about his name from time to time. He's involved with Mid-Atlantic, a couple other places he's working with. But you can tell. And as I was speaking before the program started, I went to Alabama. There's a fella down in Alabama, been in 38 years so far behind bite mark evidence. The odontologist has done recanted, said, well, I can't testify, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. When he went in, he's got degrees. He's been to the warden's house and worked on the warden's computer. He had furloughs in Alabama. So he didn't have a murderous bone in his body. It's just they put him in a ringer. And I know because I don't know him personally, but just what people told me and the facts that, he's got law degrees and all these things going for him, that if somebody had done something like that, maybe have not, but you never know. You got to have a crystal ball. You never know. But nobody in prison's guilty. Since I've been out, I still stay in contact with my family. I was in prison longer than I was out. So a lot of my family are in prison. I'm still in contact, still support a lot of them. Good people did wrong things, kind of deal. But you never know. And I've had a few of them contact me, want me to reach out to the Innocence Project and see what I could do for them. And I can't do that. I can't do that because of the fact I know they did what they did. They're convicts. They're just trying to find a way to get out. And that's one of the problems that the Innocence Project has, is people writing them trying to find a way to get out because they see people getting exonerated, and they go through every letter. They don't pick and choose. They research. So you take one convict that sends something bogus, something in, and they start looking into private investigators or sending somebody out to get the court dockets and stuff like that. They are wasting their money, but they have to do that because in there are Rodney's and Keith. So they got to go through these things. But I've had people I know that have done things and asked me to see what I could do. They just, abolished the death penalty in Virginia. I was a part of that because I was the poster child because I was convicted of capital murder first go around. It's just I got a life sentence, but I abolished the death penalty in Virginia this year. And I had a guy that he took a plea bargain for a life sentence instead of the death penalty, but he did it. And he wanted me to see if I could find some way legally that he could get out because he admitted to it, even though he did it, but to avoid the death penalty. So I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but no, I can't do that. That's not right. But there are people that are in prison that are there that got entirely too much time or because when you go to prison, your family, you lose everything. If you stay for a long period of time, you lose everything. You lose your family, you lose your friends. And if you're wrongfully convicted, some of them, normally have to believe, a court of law convicted you. They said you did it. Judges and attorneys and prosecutors and jurors said you did it. How can I say you didn't do it? I love you, but they said you did. That's the toughest part, of that part of a wrongful, the conviction part of it. But, they're out there, but we can't give up. We can't say no, no, we got to still look. There are people like me out there and people like Rodney still out there. And it may be for 2 or 3 years, or it may be for their whole life. They need help, because they got screwed, because the system took advantage of them. The system broke laws, criminals running the system. They need help. But, like Rodney said, you don't have a crystal ball. You really don't know. I never spoke about my crime because everybody in prison is innocent. So if I told people I didn't do it, what they going to think? I kept it to myself. I told people, guys I knew, friends in prison, you make friendships and stuff. There are good people in there that did bad things, made mistakes. And, that's how I got to the Innocence Project. One of them said, hey, man, you're all right there. But you don't go around every day saying, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it. After a while, somebody's going to slap you in the head and tell you to shut up. But they're in there. There are people there. I was there. I can't say about others. Just like when I went to that trial and I said that poor SOB, he was convicted, a young kid, gang member. He was at trial for first-degree murder. And some and the groupies, and that's it. There was no support whatsoever for him. I can't say he did it. I don't know. I would never do that. People did that to me. I would never do that. But you don't know who's guilty. You have to be involved. It gets back to being involved. I don't know. There were probably, and they are people that were wrongfully convicted. I am one. There are others. That's all I can say about that. I can't say anything about anybody else in prison. I can't say. I was there. I can't believe I'm the only one. Rodney is one. He wouldn't know. So.
I just want to say one thing, in all fairness too, with my answer, that in my time in prison, I met some individuals that I believe needed to be in prison, that society was better off with them there. So I've met some monsters in prison, some guys who are really, really dangerous and should not be, home and should not be in society. And that was a premise to base it off as well, because it's not like, I'm not, gonna just, ignore that factor as well, because that's a premise, that's a reality too, because, there is some individuals that need to be removed from society. And so it is a fact too. And that gives you a better scope to look at individuals who may have been innocent, because there are people, you got the dynamics, you got the high, you believe, but then you got those who that they're not out there with your loved ones, and they're not, even though you were in prison with them, then that they're not out in society. So prison, I don't want to discount the need for society to protect the vulnerable, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, have a more just system to recognize and prevent the innocent from being incarcerated.
Thank you both for sharing that. So I conducted a survey on the campus about stigmas made against prison exonerees. And I guess the question that always I asked people was, that people thought about if they feel that exonerees are actually innocent, even though obviously they've been exonerated. So do you guys feel that people still view you as guilty, even in spite of you being exonerated?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's the O.J. Simpson thing. I mean, that's what kind of, everybody says O.J. did, but technicalities got them all. So, yes, and of course, the judicial system, those that didn't admit their guilt still agree that I did it. When I went to New Orleans, the odontologist, famous Levine, the Ted Bundy odontologist, it was testified at my trial. It was an actual convention for the FBLO or whatever it is. It's the scientific community. They get together and they drink a lot and bring their girlfriends and not their wives, and that's what this is all about. Anyway, this jerk Levine odontologist was there. And everybody, all his buddies, all these other odontologists that don't do this because those kind of people make them look bad, said, yeah, he's around, but he never was around me anywhere. And I told him, I said, well, he got to be 75 years old. I believe I could take the bastard, but they will never admit it. He told people that I did the biting, somebody else did the rape. And there was no evidence by anybody that it was two people. But that was his way of getting by and making his ego saying, okay, he did the biting. His buddy did the rape. So that's why the DNA didn't match me. So, there you go. They don't give it up. Who wants to be wrong? But they take it to their grave. Y'all need to watch the Innocence Files on Netflix. You really, really, really need to, and see episode 3, which I'm in, and see an odontologist at his best. Will be so, well, I'll leave it up to you to watch it. Just please have plenty of hankies around and no loaded firearms, because your TV can't stand it.
What was the question?
Sorry.
The question was, do you believe that you are, people view you as guilty even though you've been exonerated in society?
Oh, well, I was exonerated DNA, so that, that puts up a great, my challenge that, DNA is what it is. And either you're guilty or not guilty. But, there's always a presumption that if you're being pointed as guilty, just culturally, what I'm saying? And so I'm sure there are some who kind of figure out in their way of coming up with some form of method of saying DNA just got him over. There's some people who may, try to say that was just, but I don't know how to, answer that, because it's no way to, to continue that process. And on another note, I really don't care. I really don't give them any credit, audience. And I march under that premise. Whether they think so or not, I stand firm in my innocence as I did all those years in prison. I didn't spend all that time fighting, and my innocence of standing firm and to come home and to come to the presence of people's opinion when I was in prison with the people who held the keys. So yes, there may be, but that's just social. That's just society is built. There's your naysayers and there's your encouragers, you know what I'm saying? There's your protractors and there's your supporters. And in these circumstances, I think it's an individual thing and how a person views themselves after being exonerated and how they let it affect them. So sure, yes, they are, but they don't, it's not, they have no power over the situation.
Looks like we're getting to the end of our time here. So Nigel, just real briefly. 6:30?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well. All right. No, sorry. Yeah, looks like we got some more questions here.
Okay.
So, and again, I'm just reading off anonymous questions. So these are from the crowd. We talked about you both mentioned inhumaneness of the prison system that you were treated. And maybe even Nigel, if you want to add in some maybe some reform or some policies that would want to be changed or anything like that. But what type of treatment did both of you have to deal with in prison? And were you treated any better or worse than other prisoners because of your sentences?
Well, I was segregated to start with because I had, a capital murder charge. So, but I got a life sentence, but they sent me to the same place they kept death row inmates, maximum security. And if any of y'all old enough to remember the first maximum security escape in the United States history, I was there. That was in Mecklenburg in Virginia. Well, I mean, a prison is a tough place. It ain't no fun, that's for sure. You got no options. You can't go home. The food's the same crap every day, it seems like. I can only speak from my experience. It's a violent place. It's never quiet. It's on 24/7. There's no holidays in Virginia, Thanksgiving and Christmas, where you get, a turkey dinner kind of thing. But other than that, no holidays. Every day's the same. You're up at 5 o'clock for count. You got counts all day long. So it's a structured environment. It ain't, like I said, it ain't no fun. It's a very stressful place. Because public doesn't want to spend a lot of money on convicts. They don't want to, feed them well or anything like that. They don't want to house them, so you pack them in as like sardines, and if you got no ventilation, that's okay. No ventilation, you ain't got to worry about anybody hiding something or escaping. I forgot what the question was. I just started thinking about prison life again. What was the question?
How
sometimes I get carried away. That's what happens. You start drinking first thing in the morning. No, I don't do that. I'm just kidding.
You both talked about being treated inhumanely. So I guess if you want to speak more about.
Well, I mean, it's just the fact that you're a convict. I was innocent, but they don't care. You're convicted. You did this, whether you didn't. So if you're a pedophile, well, you're getting what you get. If you're a rapist, you get what you get. If you're a biker, you get what you get. If you're gay, you get what you get. So, it's a subculture all in itself, all these different, groups and things going on. I don't know. Nigel, Rodney could probably tell you more.
My experience is prison. Based on the 13th Amendment, you're reduced to the status of a slave. Once says servitude or involuntary servitude should not be permissible in this country or jurisdiction, except for you duly convicted of a crime. So once you're convicted, you're reduced to the status of a slave, and that's how you're treated. And that's how the prison system is designed. There are some constitutional challenges that have been made over the years, the 14th Amendment, and also 8th Amendment cruel and unusual punishment challenges that have been made over the years that have prevented such cruelty from just happening to you, but the inhumanities of it is still prevalent, still exists on a high level, And as far as a prison, like you said, has a caste struggle, caste system of what your crime is how you're viewed, and your damn murderers are and then pedophiles at the bottom, and then in between is how you are. But see, and it depends on the individual, because although I was there innocent and I had the charges I have, sexual assault charges, I was no one's victim, and I was no one's, so, I'm not Superman, but I'm not non-Superman either. So, I mean, it depends on the person and how you conduct yourself and how you're respected in the prison environment. And so, it goes that way as far as your treatment, but the overall treatment from the administration, the overall treatment from the guards and the seat correction officers, and the overall treatment from the staff and the other staff members is just, a non-trusting. I'm in charge, and you have to obey what I say, and you stay in your line, stay in your lane, and lock in when I say lock in, and be quiet when I say be quiet, and and you stay in this prison cell that's the size of a room, and your bathroom right here, and it's just a horrible experience. I mean horrible, and so the whole experience of it is no way to glorify the experience of it, and so it's no way to say any good thing about it in that way, but most people are treated the way they conduct themselves outside of the normality of hardship of it, and the tension of it, and the violence of it, and the tension and the negativity of it. It's you approach the way you present. You're a knucklehead, you're gonna get knucklehead reaction. If you about something, you're gonna get about something reaction. If you to yourself, you're gonna get a to yourself reaction. You know what I'm saying? And that's how it go. I mean, there's a pocket of other prisoners that into which you are into everywhere. So you find that pocket, and that's where your lane, and that's where you survive at, and that's where you move out at. Or you could be to yourself, and that's respected. Because I know a lot of guys that just didn't mess with nobody, and they were respected. And so it's just like that. So it's different. What different people would say their experience in prison were different things. Some guys went to prison, and because of their charges, because of where they were victim, and they were vulnerable, and they were people in prison is a place where people prey on vulnerability. They prey on weakness, and they prey on that. So if they had those things, then they will become victims. But if like I said, if you were different of a different culture, a different set of rules about yourself, different things happen to you or didn't happen to you. So it's just a hard environment, and you just have to survive in the jungle, in the belly of the beast, what we call it.
Okay, and so what I would say is kind of some of the kind of reforms that we kind of push for as an organization. We've been active on the halt solitary confinement reform in New York City, just to ban the cruel and unusual use of solitary confinement in prisoners. A lot of times they're locked down what they call 23-1. So 23 hours in the solitary confinement, and then 1 hour free time. We just pushed up to halt that because we know that has adverse reactions on people who are incarcerated. We also have pushed for releasing the aging prison population. So a lot of times you have people who've been in prison for a very, very long time, and they're in their later ages of life. And we just push to kind of release them back into society because they are not a threat to society if they're that old. So those are two campaigns that we have been active in changing prison conditions, and that has been in New York State, where we are actually located. So we haven't ventured out into other states, but those are some reforms that we're looking for and that we support as an organization.
I just want to add one more point to that, is that the biggest struggle in that is in dealing with that in prison environment, because you see so much, like what I just said about the older prisoners, and you're there, and someone is dying every other day or every day, and so in prison it's nothing to walk, and they call a movement out, a yard, or to go eat. and you see a body bag laying and right there, just laying there, and then, you like, wow. And I mean, it's like such a regular. You see and you see this inhumane treatment. The goal and the hardest thing to do what you have is to not to become desensitized to these things. You always have a problem with this. You always feel bad about it. Always get used to it. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you maintain your humanity. And that's the struggle. You know what I'm saying? And that's the struggle you have to always maintain, that you don't this doesn't become normal to you, because it's not normal. And so that's a big fight, because you have to fight against yourself, because we're creatures of habit. When we do certain things and see certain things, it becomes customary, and you have to say, nah, that's wrong. You have to feel something, and every time, in every instance, and not accept this as what it is. And that's the struggle. So you don't come home and so broken. You know what I'm saying? And so. And that has to be your fight, and that's your fight as an individual. Every individual person has to have that fight. And some win, some lose. And if you feel blessed and fortunate to maintain a sense of compassion and a sense of empathy and sense of apathy, and in a situation, an environment like prison, and you have a chance to come home and reintegrate, and easier and more. It's not so hard, because you have that sense of humanity that everyone else has around you, or should have around you, home in society. So you can connect easier, because you haven't lost all of yourself to that world.
Thank you so much for that. I have a quick question for myself. For both of you, Keith and Rodney, do you think there was any sort of like racial or ethnic bias made against you, or even sort of discrimination made against you based off of things like your appearance or what you believe? And if anything, could you please speak upon that?
Not for me. It doesn't happen that often, to white men like it does to black men. So no, there was no racial bias in my case. Line up, no, there was nothing like that, but it goes on. Yes, for sure.
I'm gonna just be like he said what he said. I think I don't have to say anything other. Just the opposite. What he said, this for me it was even before prison. So it wasn't prison that it started with the bias and racial bias, but even before then, as a black man. And what he said was, I stand what he said. Just the opposite with me is he was very honest with that. I respect that.
That's the truth.
I respect
that. This is another question from the crowd, for both of you. Why do you believe the evidence was thrown out or completely disregarded during your trials?
You mean as far as the exoneration, the wrongful conviction part of it?
Yeah, the wrongful conviction part of it.
Well, I mean, the bite mark evidence was crap, but what trumped it was the DNA. That's what it trumped everything. Eyewitness, bite mark evidence, the dog sniffing, all that stuff. The DNA just wiped all that out, but it also showed a light on a lot of it. The whole fact that the serology, the forensic serologist that testified to my trials, he lied, said he couldn't find a blood type, even though when they got the bench notes, the Innocence Project and Skagnon Arts, when they got the bench notes that came along with the rape kits and stuff, he found type O everywhere, and several different type O's. I'm type A. Enough said about that. Yes. The stuff was no good to start with, but the jury was overwhelmed by the spectacular convincing entertainment that the odontologist gave. In my case, I mean, once he gave all his credentials, and they agree, everybody now agrees, you know, the lawyers from then, now, the people that's looked at it, that once Levine got through saying he was a president of this and the past person of that, and Ted Bundy and Mengele, hunt for the Nazi guy, I was convicted. He didn't have to say or do anything. They didn't have to bring the hypnotized shipyard guard in or anything else. Once he, you know, got up and gave his, you know, I am therefore you must believe me. That's the point. I was convicted. I was done because, you know, it was just jurors, regular people. And of course, in a court of law, if the judge allows somebody to be an eyewitness or witness, and the prosecutor puts that witness up as an expert, what are we to believe? The court of law, of course, they're right. The judge said it, the court of law, the prosecutor let them in, so of course they're right. But they weren't. So, you know, it wasn't the fact that the evidence was right or wrong, it just wasn't evidence. I guess that would be wrong. But until the light was shown on it through the DNA. Okay, well, DNA said he didn't do it. What did we convince him of? Okay, bite mark evidence, eyewitness evidence, no blood. They didn't have fingerprints. I don't know how. The guy was there all night for 6 or 8 hours. But, you know, the DNA trumped all that crap, so they can stick in their keister. But before they let this other stuff that compiled to come in and was allowed by the judge, who by law had to allow it because it's legal, even though it's not real, if that makes any sense to people. You know, the court lets it in, but it's smoke and mirrors. It's the Wizard of Oz effect. Well, let's pull the curtain back. Well, that guy testifying, pulling them handles and stuff, he's full of crap, just like the guy behind the Wizard of Oz. You know, it wasn't that it was wrong. It just wasn't. Eyewitness testimony isn't. How can you be an eyewitness if what you're describing isn't what actually happened? That's not what an eyewitness is. And now they're starting to allow, I saw this on one of those passing by shows the other day, headlight beams at night. Oh, we can identify the car at night. We can't see the car, but we know what brand and model is because the headlight is aiming so high, so far, so wide. Please.
What was the question? Could somebody repeat the question, please, for me?
Yeah, 1 second. Sorry, I lost it here. Okay. Why do you believe the evidence was thrown out or completely disregarded in your trial?
The evidence. In my case, it didn't. There was, you know, withholding of, you know, exculpatory evidence. I mean, as in law, there's only two kinds of evidence: inculpatory and exculpatory. I mean, that's it. Evidence against you and evidence for you. And in my case, it was just the evidence that was the alleged evidence that was against me was manipulated and fabricated, and evidence that was for me was withheld. I mean, in most cases of exoneration and wrongful conviction, you often find prosecutorial misconduct at the core of the wrongful conviction when it comes to turnover discoveries and exculpatory evidence. That's why they have what's just called a Brady violation, as the Maryland versus Brady, which is a landmark case that gives guidelines that determine if the prosecution has violated the discovery rules of turning over what's called exculpatory evidence. And so that's often the core of it. The prosecution, I mean, that's the game they play. And sadly, because prosecutors have such a great protection of immunity, both in their profession and individual and official capacity, there's no way to really penalize them, like Nigel said earlier. And there's no way to really do anything about them withholding this evidence. They can have this evidence that could show that you're innocent for 10, 15 years sitting there, and then one day decide, oh, well, this guy, here we go out, this evidence was, oh man, I knew it was there. And there's nothing you really could do to penalize them for that. And, you know, and because they have that protection, and because they have no accountability, and it's hard to deal with that scenario. So in my case, which, you know, I was coerced to plead guilty, the evidence wasn't challenged because I entered the guilty plea, you know, to protect myself. So the evidence wasn't challenged. So, and so many other exonerees who go to trial, who do, the evidence of challenge is often a situation where the prosecutors, you know, they just withhold the evidence or don't turn over all discoveries to the attorney and to the counsel. And that's a big problem in the whole scope of things, you know. And so when that becomes a bigger issue of prosecutorial misconduct and oversight committees created to monitor them in a different way, then we're gonna have an issue with evidence not being properly turned over and this imbalance, which is David versus Goliath relationship between prosecutors who have an overwhelmingly great budget and, you know, most of the time they have the largest budget in the state versus the public defender's office, who most defendants have to rely on, who has no budget, a small budget, and a large caseload. So until that's rectified, it's going to always be the scenario.
I have another question again for me personally. For all three of you, do you think that wrongful convictions is a serious problem in the United States?
I'll start. Yes.
Yes. I'm waiting on you to start.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is. The numbers of wrongful convictions that we do know of are alarming. So I do know that wrongful conviction is a serious problem in the United States, especially when you take into account people taking lesser plea deals. And a lot of people think that, you know, wrongful convictions, you can only think of, you know, you think of dozens, decades upon decades, but you have people wrongfully convicted every day who've taken plea deals for things that they haven't done, and just you don't know how much that affects someone to walk around with that stigma of being a convicted felon or somebody who's taken a plea deal just in order to get home to their family. That affects someone every day, and that affects how their life goes from that day forward.
True. That's very true.
Well, what I was going to say was that, you know, in my case, 33 years, that's a lot of years. Rodney started out with 7, ended up with 18 because they flipped the script on him because he was a sex offender. So therefore, we're going to keep you where you can't harm nobody. But there's if you go to the National Registry of Exonerations out of the Michigan Law School and just go state by state, 1, 2, 3, whatever, there's a lot of wrongful convictions that are like 4 or 5 years. That's still wrong. You know, you get convicted and then you lose your family, you lose your job. You know, it's so much collateral damage from wrongful convictions. And in my case, the collateral damage was the fact that the poor woman that was raped repeatedly, the guy that did it threatened to rape her children if she got loud or make a noise or tried to escape or whatever. She was sold a bill of goods, and the fact that the monster, me, was in prison when actually the monster wasn't. He was still in that area, and that knock on the door or that limb hitting on the window could have been him coming back. But see, she lived with 33 years that monster was gone. But he continued to do bad things. You know, when somebody says, oh, somebody got away with murder, he got away with murder. He beat the husband to death with a crowbar, beat his head to look like oatmeal, and then raped the wife for hours and hours and hours. So there's the whole fact of that, you know, that she has to relive all that 33 years later. She's on Netflix. You think she wanted to do that? I mean, she did, but did she want to find out that all these years later, the criminals were in the courthouse? They were in the courthouse. And then the people of this great state of Virginia, the taxpayers at the time, had to pay an enormous amount of money for the trial, two of them, the odontologist and his, per diem, and the serologist who lied twice. So they had to pay their people twice, and the bailiffs and all this kind of stuff, transportation. So they took a bunch of money, and then 34 later, they had to give up $1.5 million of their taxpayer money because what the criminals did the first time. So there's all kind of stuff that come from wrong convictions. And if it's just 2 years, you may never see people again in the 2 years. So your friend ain't your friend no more. He moved out of state thinking you did something, but you didn't. But you can never tell him. I can never tell my parents, who both died while I was in prison. They knew I didn't do it, but they didn't get the opportunity to see me come out that gate. Wow. Think about that for a while. So if it's two years, if somebody's held for 6 months, go to New York. They lose people in New York. Nigel can tell you about that. They're finding people that were arrested years ago and ain't even been to court yet. If it's a day, it's wrong. That's why it's wrongful conviction. If it's a day, it's wrong. Everybody loses. Everybody. Forget about me. Forget about Rodney. Think about the other people. His son, his family, the victim's family. All these people thinking that Rodney did, oh, we're safe, the criminal's away, the bad guy, the monster. Well, the monster's in the courthouse. That's the prosecutor. That's the judge. That's the lawyers, or not lawyers, but the investigators and those people. There's your criminals. That's who you should be afraid of. Okay, I'll be quiet.
Nigel, what can we do to get involved with the Innocence Project? And is there anything we can do here at USD?
Yes. So in order to get involved with the Innocence Project, the first thing I'd like for everybody to do is to go to innocenceproject.org and sign up for our newsletter and alerts. We encourage people to sign up for the newsletters and alerts, so you could be alerted to any type of policy action that's occurring in your states. So we might have reforms in South Dakota coming up, and that would be great for you all to sign up and know what we have going on and how you can help. Be it actually contacting your legislators and your lawmakers. This live stream is a great thing to do for USD, just to let people know what's going on, what we're about, and what we do, and hear the stories of the men and women who were wrongfully convicted to make a more personal connection. Also, you can also donate to the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project, we survive on donations, and they don't have to be big donations. Most of our donor bases give about $5, $10 to $20 a month, and that helps to go a long way in order to continue to do our work. We looked at, I've heard a study that the average cost of exonerating a person is over $100,000. That's just the average cost. So those things kind of add up. So any help would help. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. Can we get a round of applause for Keith, Nigel, and Rodney?
Okay. Yay for
Thanks so
Nigel. Yay for Rodney. Yay for South Dakota.
Yes. Give yourselves
For
a round
having
of
us.
applause. Thank you for
Yeah.
having us. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
And can I invite the members of the Sociology Club up front, please? Front and center. You too, John. Hopefully everyone enjoyed today's or this afternoon's events, and you were informed and you learned a lot about how things were working. Can we get a round of applause for the students here who helped to get this event together?
Yes, of course. Yes, just the future.
And if I could ask everyone, by everyone I mean Keith, Nigel, and Rodney, just to hang around just a few minutes after. I'm gonna cut off live stream though. I'm gonna try to.
Goodbye, y'all.